So I was driving home from the Y last week when three words popped out of my car radio: relationships, service, and purpose. NPR was telling about U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Vivek Murthy's parting prescription for America as he prepares to leave office. Dr. Murthy cited these three aspirations as antidotes to the loneliness and unhappiness he's observed in our society. He described relationships, service, and purpose as core pillars of community and powerful drivers of fulfillment. So, what do you think that made me think of? Rotary, that's what we do all the time, right? We talk about those things a lot. I also thought about today's speaker, my long-term colleague and friend, Eric Sheperd. Eric is CEO and president of the Foundation for Talent Transformation, which is a nonprofit that helps people understand themselves, relate effectively with others, and find paths to success. The foundation provides free online resources to help individuals develop the social, emotional skills they need to thrive in their careers and their personal lives. Eric is a lifelong learner whose career began in technical school and culminated in 8 years as CEO of a pioneering software business he helped build into a multi-million-dollar international enterprise. Post-retirement, he started the foundation after extensive research about the factors that support the competence of individuals, teams, and organizations. He's here with us today on Zoom, and I'm eager to hear his talk. So go ahead, Eric.
Well, thank you so much, Joan. And it's been a real privilege to work with you for, I think, going on 30 years, just for the wonderful group of friends that you have in the room. We started probably working together in the middle 90s, probably before many of you were born. And Joan worked in PR for us in London. And Joan had said that I was CEO for 8 years. It was more like 18 years, but you know, what's a one in a number? So thank you so much for inviting me today. It's a real privilege. And thank you for the work that you do. I read a report that Joan had shared with me about workforce development and your survey of employers. And it's this kind of work that needs to be done to help us understand the jobs, the knowledge, the skills, the abilities needed in the modern workplace. So thank you for your community. Thank you for your effort, and thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm going to share my screen. I put a few slides together, but I should mention that this is also available as a PDF. So some of the details in the slides I've kind of removed to keep it kind of more brief and talkable, but there is another PDF that you can download from the Rotary website, or Joan will provide access to it. The other thing I should mention is this is going to be a flyby presentation. So we're going to talk about things that you might already know, that you might not know you didn't know. So you might be at various stages of knowledge, of understanding of this. But it's not going to be a deep dive. So I kind of think about diving. I am a scuba diver occasionally. And so you might fly by an aircraft. That's what we're going to do. You then might just do a surface dive just to look down what's below the water. We'll do some of that. But we're not going to do a deep dive to go and look at what's down there. So thank you. Welcome. And happy to take... oh, look at that. The sharing's not enabled, but I will let one of our trusty supporters grant me the ability to share. So let me just click this button again. There we go. Great. Hopefully that's all visible for you. If there's any issues, please speak up. So as I say, flyby. So I'm not going to linger too much on these slides. I've put all of my contact information kind of here and on the last slide. You're welcome to reach out to me if you'd like to know anything more, or you'd like me to refer to reference material. It'd be my pleasure to do so. We're not creating, investing, and running this foundation just to keep the secrets to ourselves. We're really trying to share with others. So thank you. So we'll cover very briefly my journey. It's been long and tortuous, so I'll be very brief. I'll tell you something about the foundation, and then we'll get more into depth about the challenges that our young adults are facing, and how the era of the fourth industrial revolution is kind of changing the nature of work. We used to kind of have a style of school, college, maybe university, maybe trade school, maybe no college, maybe no trade school, go to work till you retire, you're done, that's it. But now that nature of work is changing and the style of work is changing. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about balancing the hard skills and the soft skills. Soft skills is kind of in the profession, we prefer to call it transferable skills or transformational skills, but a lot of times people understand hard and soft skills. And then we're going to talk about how the Foundation for Talent Transformation is helping people understand themselves, understand others, and develop these skills that are so important in this fourth industrial era. And then also just to let you know the kind of partnerships and collaborators we work with. So workforce development boards, those impacted by the criminal justice system, and I'll talk about that right at the end and how we work with those groups. Great. So very quickly, my personal journey. I was born and raised in London, as you might tell from my accent. I tried to work my way through college. For various reasons, I couldn't do that, mainly financial. I stumbled into the computer industry, very fortunate to do that. This was in the late 70s, and my father thought that computers were going to be the end of the world, and luckily it hasn't caused the end of the world yet. But I stumbled in the computer industry, moved to the US to manage a subsidiary of a British company. In the late 80s, I started a distribution business, or started several distribution businesses. We'd represent overseas companies. Then became CEO of an assessment software company, so developed a very deep understanding of assessments. We had about 2,000 customers, and these were generally very large customers, so Department of Defense or Hewlett Packard, big IT companies, big banks like JP Morgan Chase, etc. So, and looked after that company in the Americas from 92 and then up to 2019. In 2019, or actually in 2018, I decided I really need to step away. It was taking a toll on my health. And so we recruited a new management team, a chairman, chief financial officer, and a CEO to position the business for sale. And at that time, I was lucky enough to work with Joan on writing a book. I was keen to write a book because I didn't want people to keep asking me about assessments and what's emotional intelligence and etc. So let me just put it in a book. So that's and Joan was instrumental in completing that book. We published that book right at the height of the pandemic. And so the assessment software company was sold. And so I took some of the money from that sale and put it into the Foundation for Talent Transformation. So while writing the book, I realized that the era of the fourth industrial phase that we're in, the era that we're in, is going to cause a lot of challenges, that people are not going to be doing repetitive tasks as much as they did before. We're going to hand it off to AI and automation and robotics. And that means we need to cooperate and collaborate. With the pandemic, we'd realized how quickly people adopted these kind of video Zoom kind of technologies. That was going to change people's relationships. So we wanted to tackle that issue. We said, let's find a problem that we can solve and let's tackle it. So we felt helping people understand change, particularly young adults, and resonating with their environment, which I'll talk about later, was important. So the key things that I should mention about from our mission statement is we're committed to using technology. We felt technology was a way to scale as opposed to having individuals. So committed to using technology to empower individuals to cultivate a positive mindset and social emotional skills. There's a lot of other people work in this area. There's workforce development coaches, there's coaches and mentors, life coaches, career coaches, and we want to give them tools that individuals can use, other people can use in the coaching practice to help cultivate this growth mindset and social emotional skills. So how do we do that? Well, we do that with these assessments. So the advantage of assessment is it motivates thinking. You could sit down and watch a video, but it's kind of have a superficial impact on your thinking process. Where if you have to answer a questionnaire, you've got to kind of dig deep and actually think how you're going to answer it. And then from that, we can provide a personalized guidance report. We can make recommendations and inspire learning. And the results will inform recommendations for our AI engine. So we've partnered with Google, with OpenAI, so we can feed the results from our assessments into a large language model, and then have Erica. The name of the conversational guide is called Erica, and will answer very complex questions. At the moment, we see very simple questions like, what career should I have? What job should I get? How shall I deal with my boss? But it can deal with very complex questions and very complex answers as well. So we are trying to meet people where they are on their devices. We're trying to inspire this self-discovery to lead to personal growth, and then use data to tailor our recommendations. So that's how we do it, one at a time. We have about 17 quizzes from life satisfaction, career interest, personal traits, personal values, emotional intelligence. So there's about 17 of these. We also provide workbooks, all free of charge. It's also available on an app, so you can just curl up on the couch and start learning from the app, specifically about social emotional intelligence and growth. We have delivered about 500,000 quizzes, so that's since 2022. So in 2021, we started the foundation. 2022, we actually had our quizzes up and running. We have about 100,000 members, 70,000 email subscribers, 22,000 apps are installed at the last count. It's almost more than that now. And we have 470 coaches. So these coaches are life coaches, career coaches, executive coaches. They help us understand how best to provide resources, and they obviously use our resources. All right. So what are social emotional skills, and why are they important for the fourth industrial era? Well, the fourth industrial era requires us to cooperate and collaborate at a distance, face to face. The nature of trust is kind of changing, and trust underpins collaboration. We have to be more adaptable. We have to seek out synergies. We also see more specialist roles. So if we think, for instance, there's a webmaster looks after the website, very important role. We see counselors, they have their role. We see IT people, they have their role. So everyone has these different, more specialized roles because they're kind of complex. They've got to be able to communicate. So how can they communicate effectively? So do you need good communication skills, verbal, written, etc. And conflict resolution. So in the era of social media, it's very easy just to delete someone, hide someone. In years ago, when I was a kid, if you had a conflict, you'd have to resolve it because you're going to see the person the following day or in a couple of days. And so how do we manage conflict? These are skills that we have to learn for the new world of work. And then navigating uncertainty and rapid change. In the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see so much change. We've already seen a lot of change, pre-pandemic, pandemic to this year. It's going to happen more. So we have to embrace change. By resisting, it's not going to help. All right. So how do we actually show up to work? So there's a few dynamics here we have to think about. So one is this base layer. So I've been talking about personal values, our identity. What groups do we belong to? What groups do we affiliate with? Are we more independent or are we more group oriented? What are our personality traits? Are we introversion, extroversion, neurotic, open to new ideas? What are our vocational interests? And these are often driven by our life experiences and also our DNA. It kind of influences that. And this base layer doesn't normally change very dramatically unless we go through a near-death experience, loss of a loved one, which could also mean loss of a job, loss of our purpose for external reasons. So generally, these are fairly stable. On top of that, we can develop these social emotional skills. So self-awareness, do I know what my values are? Because if I know my values, I have a better understanding of my purpose. If I value charity, if I value achievement, if I value caring, it's going to guide how I want to live my life. And if I live in opposite to my values, in ways that are opposite to my values, then I will find it very tiring. So being self-aware of this is important. Self-management. So if I'm triggered emotionally, can I still think about what is a successful outcome for this situation, even though I have been triggered emotionally? So managing myself appropriately. Social awareness, read the room. What's going on? Is it really, how do we work as a group? How do we contribute and draw from others in social environments? And then relationship management. Physically, 1,000 years ago, we'd only last till 30 or 35 years old. But now we're having these lifelong relationships going over decades, which is, so we have to develop relationship management skills. How do we communicate? How do we recognize and respect other people in our circle? So these are the kind of social emotional skills we're talking about. Now, the way we behave, the way we show up depends on the situation, depends on the environment. So if we're in a healthy home, imagine we all go home and everybody's asking about our day and interested in our life, and it's very healthy, and hopefully we don't have any leaks in our roof, and we have warmth and we have comfort. So in Maslow's model, we have the essentials of life. So that can be a healthy home, but there are people living in toxic homes. I hope that none of you in this meeting today are living in a toxic home, but people do live in toxic homes where they're affected by abuse, they're affected by unsanitary conditions. That will affect how people turn up, not only how they are at home, but also how they might turn up in the outside world, especially if they've been raised in a toxic work environment, a toxic home environment. Now, when we get to work, it's kind of similar. If we can create a thriving workplace where people have psychological safety, they have the tools they need, they have the information they need to do the job, they have the right level of autonomy, then we can create thriving workplaces. But there are toxic workplaces out there where we're not providing a psychologically safe environment. It may be an abusive environment. It might be inappropriate. People do not enjoy toxic workplaces. But also we might behave differently when we go to a sporting event. We might be very pleasant at one environment where in a sporting event we're shouting. I was recently in Brazil, and it was amazing how much one team's supporters seem to know about the mothers of the other team. But it's a different environment, so they were reacting differently. And then in a restaurant, a fine dining restaurant, we will behave differently than maybe in a casual dining restaurant. And this kind of meeting, we have different behaviors. So how we show up is dependent on these three factors: our underlying personality, our social emotional skills, and the kind of environment, the situation that we're in. Okay, so why are young adults struggling? There's kind of five factors here that we've isolated. So one is social media technology. We tend to live in echo chambers. There's conflict avoidance. There's digital overload. We're in the kind of pro-truth era, or the post-truth era. So what do we believe? It's difficult. There's online anonymity. Do we really believe this person is a person real? So this social media is an impact. Home life and family dynamics have changed. Helicopter parenting, some over-parenting, under-parenting. Parents aren't available. They're working two jobs. Maybe they didn't even develop the skills to social emotional skills. So how could they pass them along? Maybe they're good role models or not so good role models. And the ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences through trauma that people might experience at home. So home life, family dynamics, limitations of the education system. So there's an argument, well, the education system should be teaching social emotional learning, but it's difficult to kind of measure social emotional learning. And school systems, educational systems like to have a test at the end. Did we pass the math test? So it's difficult, but there are more social emotional programs coming into our schools, and we have to recognize teachers are often overloaded. Cultural and economic challenges. So there we can go from individualism to community. And some areas, even in the US, we'll see more individualism. In others, we'll see more community. And in Europe, it's slightly different, probably more community-based. Economic pressures. We've all aware about inflation. It's very difficult for young adults to find jobs that will pay their way. There's a recent study here in Miami that the what do they call it? The minimum wage, you'd have to work 150 hours a week in order to have a livable income. And workplace stress, there's all this change going on. It's very stressful. Mental health, community support. We've seen decline in community engagement, but community engagement is so important for health, mental health. The religious organizations did amazing jobs here, but there's a decline in attendance of churches and mosques and synagogues. And so resolving conflict with your neighbor is not happening so much. So these are the kind of challenges. Different environment that I grew up in. I would say I had my challenges, but these are the challenges. And then some people are living in a dysfunctional household because of poor role models or economic challenges. They might have negative experiences for whatever reasons. But there are people that are living in successful upbringings. Now, they're not going to bring all of these attributes, but as an example, if you're brought up in a dysfunctional household with negative life experiences, you're probably going to distrust others. Perfectly understand what you're going to distrust others. But if you've been brought up in a different environment, you would have the ability to trust. I'm not going to read out the right hand because it's column here because it's kind of it's the opposite of the left-hand column. But you're more likely to have fear, anxiety, and depression, negative self-perception, challenges in forming healthy relationships, emotional flashbacks. Memories are really burnt into our subconscious with emotions. So if we've suffered challenges and abuse as a child, this will come back as flashbacks. Poor physical health, mental health issues, and risky behaviors. So we're trying to help people find the pieces that they might be missing. So what is it that I missed as a childhood growing up that would actually be helpful in kind of contributing and being part of the community? And so part of our work is to help people understand what they don't know, help them find the piece, and so we went through the top layer here: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, but also encourage responsible decision making. So we see on social media a lot of influencers promoting a decision to buy something or do something based on their self-interest, but help people understand that their self-interest is not always that for our interest. Resilience, that challenges do come and you have to deal with them. Self-care, it's important to look after your physical health and mental health. Diet, sleep, exercise are the basics. And then coming to lifelong learning, the world's changing very quickly. We're in an era that we just have to keep learning and just embrace continuous learning. The great news is there's great people out there. We work with workforce development boards that are helping people, student counselors, but these people play a vital role. And we, as members of our community, can play important roles in helping our youth understand the things I've been talking about. So the good news is we can move from the left to the right. We do have to learn the skills to be able to move from the left to the right. All right, so I suspect there's some employees in the room, there's some managers in the room. So it's worth recognizing it's not all about them. Yeah, they have their challenges. They're going to have to address their challenges. They're going to have to learn. But how do we react? How do we help them? So this is the book that Joan and I collaborated on, which is called The Talent Transformation Pyramid. And it pulls together these ideas on the left, the idea of personality, layering on social emotional intelligence. And on top of that is a situation, and therefore we behave based on that kind of area of the pyramid there. And then on the right, we have physical and cognitive abilities. So this is how nimble we are in mind and body. And then we can learn these functional skills to do things like join two fiber optic cables together, or put the plumbing in a house, or replace some electrical work. So we can develop these skills and knowledge, skills, abilities to perform tasks. But our actual, how capable we are depends on the environment, which these days comes down to information and tools. Information and tools. Environment also encompasses the weather. So if we're joining a piece of fiber optic cable at the bottom of the ocean, it's going to be different than if I'm joining it in a laboratory, or I'm halfway up a pole for electrical company joining something together. So the environment is a physical environment, but also information and tools. So as managers, where we can impact things, make sure people have the right tools, the right information, the right physical environment in order to perform the tasks. Now they could be capable of performing the task, but they don't feel safe. So it's important as managers that we provide psychological safety and incentives. So incentives, I think a great example of this is Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo had provided incentives for people that ended up incentivizing them to do the wrong thing, and it was condoned by managers. So sometimes incentivizing people can actually have negative consequences to their behavior. So so psychological safety. So you don't feel safe if you view mistakes as threats. If you view a mistake as a learning opportunity, that's when you tend to feel safe. If you're hesitant to take risks, then you won't fulfill. You have to provide a safe environment for people to take risks. People tend to keep their ideas to themselves because they don't want to take the risk. But in a psychologically safe environment, they are willing to speak up. People stay quiet when they should speak up. I think when we look at the reports from the Fukushima nuclear accident, the people should have been speaking up to say, but wait a minute, we have tsunamis around here and we've got the generators in the wrong place. So maybe we should do something about that. But a hierarchical culture kind of discourages people from speaking up. Go through the rest of the list, but you get it. You can read the notes afterwards. But helping people feel safe, it's a learning opportunity, and being able to offer trust and create trust. So what is the foundation for talent transformation? What do we actually offer? What's out there? So key thing is these personal guidance reports. So this particular one is on the left-hand side is the report from personal values quiz. So we've identified 9 quizzes, 9 values that's in that quiz. And we're showing there the quotients of each value. So for this person, freedom is not so important to them, but achievement and tradition and stability and respect are very important to them. So then the report will say, what does it mean that achievement's important for you? But remember, other people, achievement might not be important. So, you have to respect that and understand that. And on the right is the AI-powered guide that we call Erica. So you can ask some very difficult questions. This one's a difficult question. My dad left home years ago. My mom is working 2 jobs. I'm 17 and I want to go to college, but we have no money. What should I do? So it's not just like, why is achievement important? You can ask it questions like that, but you can also ask it questions. And also if you say, I'm in Camden, Maine, and I have these challenges. What should I do? It will pull out information about Camden, Maine, and resources that are available. So that's so we provide this as an app. We provide it as a web application. It's all free of charge. We do have a subscription model to help sustain the organization, but our goal is to help the underprivileged and under-resourced. So we will maintain this being free, and we survive on donations and subscriptions. Collaboration partners, these are our 6 kind of partners we have. The life coaches, career coaches, workforce development professionals, student advisors, impacted by the criminal justice system, trauma-impacted youth, the underprivileged, under-resourced. If any of you are aware of any of these kind of organizations that you think they might find our resources useful, please put us in touch, provide an introduction. I'd sincerely appreciate that. Any organization that has mentors and counselors are generally organizations that appreciate our resources, so would appreciate the introduction. So we have, you can imagine, 500,000 quizzes delivered. We have thousands of recommendations. So these we're going to start posting to social media, and so that people understand kind of the impact we're having on people's lives. But I think a couple of stories just to finish up the presentation, then I'll be very happy to take question and answers, is to talk about specific individuals. So I'm going to talk about Teresa. So Teresa is based in Northern Florida. She took the career interest, personal values, emotional intelligence quiz. She was a nurse. She was from a Central American country, and she felt that she was being given all the dirty jobs, and those from North America were getting easier jobs and cleaner jobs, and she was disappointed in that. So she kind of said, let me reconsider my career choice. I'm in the right career. And then she realized that she was. She took these quizzes, she took the advice, she's reached out to me and explained, how things had transitioned. And what she learned was that she actually had the power to communicate effectively with the patients, effectively with the other nurses and doctors. So this, particularly her understanding of emotional intelligence, helped her empathize with others, helped her understand others. She realized that nursing was her passion. By the way, that's not her in the picture. People are very sensitive about their identity, and should we expose their identity? So it's just an illustrative picture. But she's now feeling much happier, more successful. She's going on and progressing her career with more education. Another lady, this lady, again, this is not a real representation of this lady, but her name was Claire, or is Claire, still Claire. And she was working as a hotel receptionist, and she was felt, she had good relationships with her guests and co-workers, but she wasn't feeling fulfilled. And so she took these three quizzes: career interests, personal values, entrepreneurial competencies. She realized that she really wanted to be autonomous. She wanted to do her own thing. She wanted to create her own business. So, with that understanding, she started a mobile dog grooming business. And now she has the flexibility and the autonomy that she wants. So, by deepening that understanding of herself, she was able to have the courage to progress. So this is the foundation. We seek out people that are struggling for whatever reason. This exponential change, this post-trust era that we're in, and where people are feeling lost and lonely and hopeless, dejected and disengaged. And then we'll help them learning through these resources that we're providing. At the moment, about 1,000 people a day are using our resources to help them thrive, develop their careers, their contributions, their relationships, and ultimately, we believe this will help communities flourish. So, with that, I'd be very happy to open up for questions.
Any questions?
Oh, you're still in the room, so that's encouraging.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a bit low,
Yeah,
but I can
thank
turn
you
up my
for an
volume.
excellent presentation. I found
Thank you.
that very interesting. On your life coaches or counselors, I think you called them coaches, are they all over the country? Are they in Maine? And how do you access them? Thank you.
So they are all over the world. You can access it by going to the website and clicking on coaches. So many of these coaches will work virtually on Zoom calls, and so their location isn't particularly material. But their focus, if you're selecting a coach, then it's worth reading a few of their profiles to understand their kind of focus. So they focused on the youth, or they focused on midlife transitions, career transitions. So that's how. And we have some articles that would help you select a coach. Happy to share those with you.
Thank you.
Eric, thank you. With regard to asking Eric a question, presumably the responses are generated from a database. How do you generate that response database, and how is it verified?
So it's a large language model, so it's not fixed responses. Let me just go through the evolution of this. So we started out by what we would call an intelligent, frequently asked questioning system. So we started with 1,000 questions that we came up with in conjunction with our coaches, and we came up with the answers to those 1,000 questions. We then did an intelligent search, so people would ask a question, and we would reference this frequently asked questions, and we do it by matching. So they might say, how do I develop my emotional intelligence? But we had an article that says emotional intelligence helps you succeed in life. And so we would do that intelligent matching. And that was working very well. We'd have good audience reactions, but then we had people asking multi-part questions. So the one that I remember very strikingly, it said, I am a woman in northern India and I'm going through a divorce, which is really difficult for me. And I need help in defining the next phase of my life, And an intelligent FAQ just couldn't handle that. So we then partnered with OpenAI, so the folks that bring you ChatGPT, and we then trained the model with. We built another 1,000 questions. So we had originally 1,000, and then we got people asking questions that we didn't have a match for, so we developed that. So we ended up with 2,000 questions and answers, And we then trained the model on that. And we also took all of the thousands of pages we had developed for the reports, and we fed that into large language model. And so it's basically a trained large language model. And some of you may or may not know this, but ChatGPT is a large language model, and it's like a sophisticated fill in the blank. So you start with one word, and it looks forward 40,000 possible combinations of the next word. It chooses that word, and then it looks at another 40,000 words and looks at the next word. So the key thing is all the training material that you give it in order to come up with an intelligent response. And part of the training that we provide is to say that we have to be respectful, empathetic, provide valuable answers, act like a life coach, act like a qualified life coach. And please try it yourself. I think it's amazing and it's extremely helpful to people.
Any other
Well, the
questions?
last part of the question was kind of how do we test it? So I'm paraphrasing what you'd asked. So one of our psychologists on staff has developed these what we call personas. So one persona is I'm depressed and want to commit suicide, and we have certain questions that we will feed into the model to confirm that we're giving the right kind of advice. Another persona is I'm in constant pain and I want to be euthanized. What would So there's those extreme cases. Another one is I'm a 17-year-old girl in the ghetto and, I'm living in a neighborhood of drugs. How do I survive? So we ask questions from that persona. So the psychologist, who's also a qualified coach, will go through, and each iteration we do will confirm that we're getting the right responses.
Can you tell us a little bit about the book that you wrote?
Sure. So the book, I think I explained, was I wanted to dump my brain into a book so that people didn't ask me the same questions the rest of my life. Also, I've been frustrated in my career that people were confusing different kinds of assessments. So there's assessment that you'd use for pre-employment. There's assessment you'd use for promotion. There's an assessment used to encourage learning. There's a skills assessment. There's a psychological profile assessment. There's all these different kinds of assessments. There's team assessments, business assessments. And people were often commingling these. And I said, we need a model that just helps people kind of tease this apart and know, are they assessing a personality trait? Are they assessing personal values? Or are they assessing someone's behavior? So a 180 or a 360 assessment would be assessing behaviors. And so I spent a year just going around seeing my friends in human resources and learning and development. And I developed a lot of friendships from my previous job role. And we'd started out with Venn diagrams and different diagrams. We came up with the pyramid that I showed you. And so the book essentially says, hey, the world's going to change a lot because of AI and automation. This is how people deal with change. And this is how, as a manager, you might think about change. Here's the model, the pyramid, and know which bit you're interacting with and know how important that is. And if you're assessing things, oh, by the way, here's a chapter on history of assessment. But now pick the right assessment. Are you trying to help people learn? Are you trying to judge? Are you trying to recruit? And so what is the purpose of each kind of assessment, and how does it help you as a manager improve your team dynamics? That was the premise of the book.
Thank you.
Eric, thanks so much. That was
Very
fantastic.
welcome. Yeah, very welcome. Thank you. Thank you for everyone.
Judith, if you could help us with the honors.
I would be very pleased. That is, if Corey can help me. Could you draw the magical ticket and read the last four? He's looking for his.